Hi, everyone. We'll just start with some practice together, some silent practice to come into presence together for about 5 or 10 minutes. For those of you that are just joining, we're going to be practicing in silence for about 5 or 10 minutes together. Very good. It's nice to see so many people, old friends and new friends. Why don't, to start, let's introduce ourselves. We will start with the people here physically in this room at Oak, and then we'll turn to you, our friends joining us online, and we'll just say our name and one word that describes a quality that we're hoping to cultivate or come away with after this time together. So it could be inspiration, clarity, hope, anything like that that you're looking for, one word that you're hoping to find or cultivate during this time. So I'm Tasshin, and I'm hoping to find courage.
Hi, I'm Alice. It's good to see you all. I am hoping to cultivate compassion.
Hi, I'm Jōshin. Hoping to cultivate love.
Hello, I'm Zev. I'm hoping to cultivate alertness.
And I'm Kyle, and I'm looking to cultivate integrity.
Let's go to, is it Ayush? Is it Ayush Jain? You're gonna have to unmute yourself. Well, let's go to Amy in the meantime.
Hi, this is Amy. I'm looking for whatever.
Thank you, Amy. Let's go to Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee. Looking to cultivate spaciousness.
Thank you. Let's go to Rich.
Hi, everyone. Rich here. Hoping to cultivate equanimity.
Thank you. Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam, and I also am looking for equanimity, like as soon as possible.
Pete. Pete, you are still muted.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Oh, Ayush. All right, why don't you go now first?
Yeah, my bad. My headphones didn't seem to be working. So yeah, I'm Ayush. I'm an incoming college senior. I go to Carnegie Mellon University, and I've actually recently applied for the apprentice program at the Monastic Academy, which is, I think, scheduled to start in October. I haven't received my final decision yet, but yeah, I'm definitely hoping to join, and I just wanted to see like what sitting with the community would be like, and to hear about Tasshin's experience, his recent retreat.
Thank you. Let's go back to you, Pete. As soon as you can find me, there you go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Pete. I'd like to cultivate more presence.
Thank you. Dave.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dave McCoy, and I am here to like to cultivate community.
Thank you. Yasna and the whole room full of people.
Hi, I'm Yasna, we're Station, and I'd like to cultivate love.
I'm Brooks. And hi everyone. It's so nice to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm just happy, but so it's hard to want to cultivate anything, but I'll say freedom. Freedom.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'd like to cultivate energy. Hi, I'm Norm. I'd like to cultivate positivity. I'm James, and I would like to cultivate wakefulness.
Thank you. Good, Danielle.
Hey, Danielle, and I would like to cultivate deliberateness.
And Lynn and Bob.
Hi, I'm Lynn, and I would like to cultivate patience.
I'm Bob, and I would like to cultivate wisdom.
Thank you all.
Great. Well, it's so lovely to see so many people here. As I said, some old friends and some new friends. So that's always a treat. And in general, it's a gift to be here at Oak, continuing my own training in this form of teaching, helping the people here, helping our local community, helping our extended community. It's a real privilege and honor to be of service in this way. So I thank you for that opportunity. As I said, my name is Tasshin. I'm here for something like 2 months to help give Jōshin a rest, some time in Vermont, get to connect to the community there and help Oak to continue on in his absence. And some of you may know, some of you may not know, but I've done about 135 days of retreat this year in various forms, mostly through solitary retreat in our cabins in Vermont. And many people have asked me what the fruits of this time are, what the benefits, the results are, and the main sense that I have both for myself and the world and for you is that I am shouting from the rooftops is that this is precious. This teaching, this opportunity, this community, this is precious. I imagine you all have had a chance to have a sense of this as well over the last months. As our world changes, both outside and inside, we realize that community is precious, that teachings are precious, and even that this life, this moment, is precious. And for me at this time, that's a very felt, concrete, tangible arising in my experience. Most of us come to this path and we're seeking something. It's different for different people. There are different circumstances that bring us to it. We might be seeking a way to sleep better at night. We might want to be happier at work. We might see that the world is in pain and we want to help. Or we might just simply be inundated in our own suffering and be desperate for a way out or some kind of solution to the problems that seem to be everywhere. And the closer we look at this problem, whatever it may appear to us to be, the deeper it goes. We see, I thought I just wasn't sleeping well at night, but actually I need to change my job. And underneath that, I need to make a behavioral change. And underneath that, it's because I'm uncomfortable with other people's emotions. And underneath that, it's because I just don't know how to be present with anything at all. That's just an example, not something that's necessarily happened to me, but there's this trend of noticing that the problems go very deep. And that was a sort of direction inwards, but it also goes outwards. We think the problem is just our coworker who's annoying, and then we realize that the whole organization is messed up. There's just systemic issues, and then we realize, oh no, it's actually bigger than that. It's our whole industry. Oh no, wait, it's the whole human civilization. We're destroying the planet. It can go outwards as well. So whether we look closer within ourselves or farther outside of ourselves, we see that there are vast and deep problems that need to be resolved, and we become desperate for some kind of solution, some kind of peace, both for ourselves and for others and for the world as a whole. This sort of desperation has arisen many times for me personally, in many different forms at different periods of my life. I thought I would share two of the earliest instantiations of this desperation. My first memory is of this desperation. I was maybe 3, and I was sitting on my mother's lap in the kitchen, and she was eating a carrot. She had some carrots, and she offered me a carrot. And I was like, no, I don't want a carrot. And then she ate the carrot that she had offered me. And suddenly I really wanted the carrot. I was desperate for that carrot. And I remember even trying to reach into her throat to get the carrot. And didn't really understand how physical objects worked, I guess. And that was confusing. Why did I not want the carrot and then suddenly want the carrot? Why was it that I could have the carrot and then I couldn't have the carrot? It didn't make sense to me. Maybe a couple of years later, when I was 5 or 6, I remember also being in the kitchen in the home that I grew up in, and I was in some kind of argument with my father. He was maybe telling me something, or I'm not sure what the occasion was. But I was very angry, and I started yelling at him. I think I was probably too young to be swearing at him, but I was very angry. And in that moment, I remember very clearly noticing that I was angry, noticing that that wasn't helping me or him, and wanting to stop. I didn't want to be angry anymore. I noticed that I was suffering, essentially. Wouldn't have used that term at the time, of course, but I noticed this anger is suffering. I want to stop, and then I could not stop. I was unable to stop yelling at him, even though I knew it wasn't helping me. I knew it wasn't helping him. I wanted to stop, and I could not stop. And I was just so befuddled. I want to stop doing this thing. It's a bad thing, and I can't stop. What is even happening? Who am I? How do I really choose to do something? How do I be a good person if I can't stop doing something bad? And these kinds of moments recur for us throughout our life. These aren't unusual experiences that just this person in brown robes have had. Most of us have these kinds of experiences where we notice in some shape or form there's a problem. There's a problem in my mind, there's a problem in my family, there's a problem in the world, and we become desperate to find a solution. We realize that the way we're doing things isn't working and a change needs to be made. And when we start this path, we have faith that there is some kind of solution. Perhaps there's a teaching or a teacher that could help me with this problem that I'm facing. Maybe there's some way out. I feel trapped, boxed in. It seems hopeless. And yet we go forth anyway, having faith that perhaps there might be some kind of solution. This is the critical moment that all of us have. It's the kind of thing that leads you to come to meditation and talk on a Saturday afternoon when you could be doing anything with your life. There's many nice things to be doing with your life, but eventually we see perhaps it's worth spending some time looking for an answer to the problems that are most pressing on my heart. And of course, as I said, different people notice this problem in different ways at different times. It may seem to have a different shape to different people, but we realize that this isn't working at whatever scale we're concerned with, and we become eager to find a solution. I know for myself, I've looked in many places for a solution to the problems that plague me. Why is desire so confusing? Why is anger so hard to put down? How do I have friends? How do I be happy in community? Different questions like this. I've looked for answers in many places. Most of us are like this. We don't know where to look, and so we try anything. Maybe it's a hobby or a relationship or a job or a career or something more damaging like drugs or alcohol, some kind of ideology. And we look in different places for a solution. So I've looked in almost all of those places that I just named. And for me at this time, the best, most complete solution that I've found is the Buddhist spiritual path. That's, of course, as a subset of spirituality in general. It looks to me like most of the spiritual paths that are on offer, the different traditions, practices, teachers, are all offering something genuine and real. But some seem more helpful than others. Some seem more applicable and relevant than others. And some seem more practical than others. So for me at this time, Buddhism seems to be the most relevant, useful, broad, practical, spiritual tradition that I've encountered. Having looked in many places, knowing that spirituality is the broadest answer, I've looked in many traditions, and Buddhism is, as I described to someone yesterday, disarmingly practical. There are sutras in the Buddhist canon that describe how to respond to any number of situations or problems, ones that you really have and are looking for an answer to, and ones that you didn't know you needed an answer to. For example, how to tell your parents that you're joining a monastery. That's one that I wish I had, several years ago. That would be useful to have read at that time. It's a little late for that now, but that's a useful thing for those of us that have chosen to take monastic training on as a path. There are, of course, many sutras about how to walk the path of a householder, how to have a family, a home, a career in a way that's good. The Buddha for example, names kinds of careers that are considered harmful that you shouldn't take up. And that's useful information to know that this wise person has offered to us that certain paths are harmful. Then we can avoid those paths. For any number of very practical problems that you face walking the spiritual path, there's a sutra for that, whatever it is. And I heartily recommend that if you don't already have a practice of studying the sutras, that you remedy that today, even. They're wonderful. I just started studying them perhaps a couple of years ago. And for me, it was like as if I had been raised a Christian and somehow managed to never read the New Testament ever. So I had received teachings from Jesus and I knew what it was like to be a Christian, but somehow I just totally missed out on actually reading the New Testament. Of course, the point isn't to be well read in a tradition, but it's useful. It's neither necessary nor sufficient, but it is useful. And they're available for free online. There's a lovely website, accesstoinsight.org, that has many sutras. There are other ones as well. And you can just kind of poke around. You can, if today I'm not able to give you the thing that you came looking for, maybe you were hoping to find wakefulness and you're still sleepy at the end, you can look up how to become more wakeful. There's a wonderful sutra where the Buddha talks to Mahamoggallana, one of his chief disciples, about how to become more wakeful. And it's extremely practical. It says, if you're sleepy, do this. If that doesn't work, do this. If that doesn't work, do that. If that doesn't work, do that. If that doesn't work, try this. If that doesn't work, try this. And then if all of that really didn't work and you really gave it a go, and it's been about 12 hours, then you can go to sleep for about 4 hours, because that's the monastic path. Monks typically get 4 or 5 hours of sleep on retreat. So it's very practical, disarmingly practical, because often when we're in the situation of looking for a solution to our problems, part of us knows that we're suffering and we need a solution and we're willing to do anything to do it. And then some other part of us is not quite bought in. We have some reservations. We're not quite sure about this whole spirituality thing. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. So when the Buddha gives us very practical advice that will work, part of us is relieved and excited and grateful, and part of us says, oh no, absolutely not. This sounds terrible. So it can be both useful and horrifying to find these the answers to our questions, because we might not be willing to do what it says, even if it's simple and feasible and seems likely to actually solve the problem. I think that one of the limiting factors that determines our ability to engage fully with a spiritual teaching in this way, the thing that makes us either take the advice, even if it's hard, or fall away, shy away, not take the advice. One of the limiting factors is our own honesty and integrity. I've noticed over the years that people in our tradition tend to fall into one of two extremes. And it's a spectrum, of course. I'm sort of simplifying this now, but it's a spectrum, and different people are at different points at different times, but there's sort of two buckets to oversimplify here. On the one hand, there are some people who really go for it. They hear about these teachings, they're desperate to find a solution, and they take up the advice that their teacher, whether it's someone at Maple or Oak, or the Buddha, or certainly the advice of teachers in other traditions, they hear what the teacher has to share, and then they go do it. And then, in my experience, when I'm in this bucket, it tends to work, and I tend to feel better, and things go well. The other bucket is, well, of course, they don't follow the advice. They don't do it. Things don't get better. But often, that's associated with a kind of distrust of the teacher. They'll say, oh, I don't know, maybe you're trying to manipulate me, maybe this isn't real, some kind of doubts arise. And of course, it's good to have a sort of healthy skepticism about a teacher. You want to make sure that they're a good person, that they're not trying to hurt you. That is very important. But at a certain point, you have to take a leap of faith and say, I'm just going to give this a go. I think that this person is probably a good person. They're probably not trying to hurt me. And the things they're saying are probably going to help me. So here we go. I'm going to try it. And as far as I can tell, the limiting factor that, or one of the limiting factors that determines which bucket we fall into is our own sense of honesty and integrity. So often people that are extremely in the second bucket think that the teacher is lying and is manipulating them, is out to control them, is a terrible person. And I'd suggest that one of the reasons that that's the case is that this person who's having trouble believing a spiritual teacher tends to lie to themselves about things, or they tend to lie to other people about things. If you have the practice of lying, it's going to be hard to believe that someone else could be telling you the truth. You're going to be predisposed to look for lying and manipulation of various kinds. And this can be occurring at a very subtle level. You may think that you tend to tell the truth, but then in actuality, at a deeper level, there are lies that you're telling yourself and others that you may not even notice that you're telling. Now, on the other hand, if you have a practice of telling the truth, if you make a vigorous effort to constantly tell the truth to yourself and others, then it's going to be easier to believe that someone is telling you the truth, even if you don't understand what they're saying or why it's true. You will sort of be able to be like a tuning fork to their honesty. They'll say, I'm an honest person, and this person also seems to be an honest person. I'm not detecting any genuine attempts to manipulate me. One of the ways we can sort of pull this out is just by reasoning it through. The Buddhist tradition has been around for 2,500 years or so. It was recorded about 2,400 years ago, roughly. And if you are in this bucket and it seems like spiritual teachers are out to manipulate you, that's just not actually logically sound with the Buddha, because the Buddha is dead. He can't really be trying to manipulate you through the centuries. He didn't know who you were. He does not stand to benefit from lying to you or hurting you. Of course, you might think he was really trying to manipulate people in his time or something, but that also just doesn't make very much sense. I mean, the only thing he took from his society were like 2 meals a day and some robes and a razor. Like that's what you were allowed to carry, is like your robes. You get 2 meals a day, you get poles to carry them, you get a razor, and you get a needle. I think that's everything. Also, like a cord to tie ropes. So it wasn't like he was rolling around in the, equivalent of a Lamborghini at the time or something, or hurting his students for his own benefit. He was living a life of extreme simplicity. And from that perspective, you can see this is a person that is just genuinely trying to help. Now, you might not agree with what they have to share, or you might have reservations about it, but actually taking up the teachings and trying to do them is predicated on the faith that this is someone who is a good person, who might have some kind of answer for me, that's just trying to help me solve the problems that are most troubling me, that are most on my heart, that are causing me to lose sleep at night, that are making it hard for me to serve the world, that are plaguing me, that are ruining my life. Maybe this is someone who can help me. Just maybe. Maybe. And I don't really have a better option, so I'm just going to go and read some sutras and try to find something that's relevant to my life, and I'll give what the Buddha says a go. Here we go, whatever it is. And as I said, in my experience, when I've done this with the teachings of the Buddha or the teachings of my teacher, Soryu, more often than not, when I apply the teaching, when it's a feasible teaching, which a teacher should give you, they should give you something that you can actually do, and I do it, then I feel better, and the problems dissipate, and I suffer less, and I'm better able to serve the world. And when you start seeing this kind of pattern, these successes over and over again, even things that seemed obscure, abstruse, far out, start to become plausible. The Buddha made all of these claims, and I have verified these ones for myself. Maybe he's not lying about these other ones. Maybe there actually is an end to suffering. Wow, that would be incredible. That would be worth devoting my life to. And of course, there are many practical instructions in the Buddhist canon about many different topics. We talked a little bit about sleepiness and wakefulness. There are instructions about how to deal with that. There's instructions about how to talk to your parents about joining a monastery. What kind of meals are acceptable to take as a monastic from different lay people, when you shouldn't bother them. Don't go at this hour, don't go at that hour. But there's just, often the advice is something like follow your breath. That seems to be one of the most basic teachings. Do some kind of technique, whether it's following your breath or feeling your body, and take that to the end. Discover certain properties about your experience, about the world, through running the experiment of following your breath or feeling your body. So we'll have a chance to practice with the breathing in the second half of the meditation for today. We'll start with a slightly different technique, and then as a kind of warm up, and then move into following the breath. But just know that these techniques are meant to be sort of general solutions, that it's worth finding the specific solutions that different teachers have to offer about the specific problems that we face, and at the same time that it's said that these techniques that we'll be practicing can radically transform your experience, your perception, and also your behavior, your life, and your ability to serve the world. We take it as a tremendous opportunity to find such teachings, and we practice them from that perspective, knowing that it's precious, that we may have found a teaching that can solve the problems we face, not only as individuals, but also as a species and as a planet. and we give them an earnest try from that faith and courage, hoping that we can find the answer to our problems and something that will benefit others. Good. So with that, we'll have about 45 minutes of practice or so, and about half an hour at the end to discuss this talk or any experiences you have in the meditation. And of course, please feel free to move or take care of your body, go use the restroom or get water at any time. And with that, we'll practice together. Find a comfortable position to sit in, whether it's on your cushion or on your chair. Spend a moment getting comfortable in your seat. It's very important when we practice that we establish this sense of comfort and safety from which to practice. If our body is at ease and our mind is at ease, we'll find it easier to concentrate and therefore to test the solutions that are on offer to our problems. So with that, make this bodily comfort the basis of your experience, knowing that you can return to establishing this comfort at any time. And with that comfort established, take another moment to allow your body to become upright, tall, and confident. With a comfortable body, we become relaxed. And with an upright, confident body, we become alert. This combination of relaxation and alertness is vital for our practice. It's a quality of mind that we need for whatever technique we do. So establish that and sustain it for this period. Very good. It's often the case when we sit down to practice that our minds are very active, that we think many thoughts, we wander in many directions. So to begin, having established our bodies, we're going to spend some time using our minds intentionally to cultivate concentration and a general feeling of happiness and love in our bodies. In this way, we can make use of the tendency to have an active mind, working with it instead of against it, while still cultivating the qualities of mind that we need to practice. In order to do this, we're going to use mental talk, verbalization in our minds, to make positive statements. You can repeat a phrase over and over again, such as, I love you. Or you can constantly find a stream of new, spontaneous statements in your mind. Might sound something like this. I'm grateful to be in this community. This opportunity is precious. It's a beautiful day out. Statements like this, keeping the focus on being positive. For some people, it will be easier to use the same phrase over and over again. For others, it might be more fun to switch it up, find variety. Either way, keep a continuous stream of mental talk that's positive and engenders some kind of positive feeling in your body. It's important with this technique to keep a stream of thoughts going. That might mean saying the same phrase over and over again, and it might mean constantly saying new phrases. In this way, we cultivate concentration by staying right on it, continuing the thread of mental talk. And in addition, we keep our eye out for any positive feelings that arise in the body. Perhaps a sense of gratitude or love or compassion, connection might arise in the body. If it does, savor that and allow that to continue alongside the talk in your mind. We're using positive thinking to cultivate concentration and positive feelings in the body. If at any time you notice that the stream of thinking has fallen away, that's your chance to practice concentration by returning to the use of mental talk. Simply, gently return to either saying the same phrase over and over again, or spontaneously finding new statements. Either way, you should be able to hear this in your mind. I love you. I love you. I love you. Just like that. It may or may not happen, but if any positive feelings arise in the body as a result of this process, really savor those. Notice them, notice where they are and what they feel like, and enjoy them, allowing the pleasure, the joy, the happiness and contentment to inform how you do this practice. Very good. We've cultivated a sense of concentration and positive feeling in the body. And with that established, we can turn our attention to a more traditional technique, feeling the breathing at the abdomen. Place awareness in your abdominal area, noticing the sensations of breathing associated with the inhale and with the exhale. This is a traditional technique for developing concentration and insight. We're going to put a little bit of a spin on it. We're going to make a slight adjustment that will help us to stay concentrated, following the breath more and more closely. To do that, take one of your hands and put it out just slightly in front of you with the palm facing up. And on your next inhale, raise your hand until it seems to reach a peak. And then turn it over, palm down, and on the exhale, lower your hand. Continue to do that motion, synchronizing your hand with your inhale and your exhale. Continue to feel the breathing at the abdominal area, noticing in particular the inhale and the exhale, and move your hand in accordance with that breath. You might find it useful to slow the breathing down just slightly, but it's fine to go at any pace whatsoever. If we go to a yoga class or a Tai Chi class, practicing these contemplative arts, we practice tying the motions of our body to our breathing and find that that helps improve our concentration, our energy, our focus, our clarity. And this exercise, we realize that this is something we can do anywhere, in any circumstance, tying the motions of our body to our breathing. You can actually do this with any number of kinds of motions. Eating, for example, or walking through a room. But we're making it very simple for ourselves by just using one hand and a simple motion. As you do this, notice the quality of your attention. Whether it's easier to stay with the breath or harder. Whether there's more or less detail at the abdomen. If your hand gets tired, feel free to switch hands. Or even to use a different motion that seems interesting. In any case, continue to synchronize your breathing with the motion and the motion with your breathing. This practice of synchronizing the breath with motion is one of the most powerful techniques that I've found for bringing the practice into life. If we practice it enough, we may find that we are subconsciously moving with the breath as we go about our day. And even that act can change how we show up in the world. We might find ourselves saying something different than we expected, or moving in a different way than we're used to, perhaps with more grace or ease. Know that that's possible and use this as an opportunity to investigate. How does this affect my attention? Is it easier or harder to concentrate? Is there more or less detail at the abdomen? There are many ways to synchronize the breath with our motion. This act of moving our hands with the abdominal breathing is just the simplest possible case. We're making it easy on ourselves. But if you feel so called, feel free to try a more complicated movement. In any case, synchronize your breathing with the motion of your body and the motion of your body with your breathing. Very good. And on your next exhale, put the motion away and drop the attention of the breathing. Notice what the quality of your mind and consciousness are like right now. Are you happy or unhappy? Are you calm or anxious? Are you tired or energized? Are you focused or are you distracted? Is your body tense or relaxed? There isn't a right or a wrong answer. Without doing anything in particular, we're just practicing noticing what the quality of our mind is at this time. It's a chance to notice what effects these techniques have had on our consciousness, on our awareness, on our mind. And attending to that, we accept whatever there is, without judging it as good or bad, just becoming more attuned to what it's like to be us right now, having done these exercises. You don't need to do anything in particular, just notice the quality of your awareness right now. Very good. Thanks for practicing together. This is a chance for some discussion and conversation. We'll open it up to everyone. And if you have a report about what the meditation was like for you, or a question about practice of mindfulness, or something that I said in the talk, I'd be happy to answer that as well. Anything's fine. This time is yours.
Can I make a reflection?
Mm-hmm.
Really appreciated the reflective questions that you asked near the end. It's a good reminder to actually think about, like, in this very moment, what does the practice? What are some fruits of doing this practice? Yeah, it's amazing that oftentimes, I might just finish a sit and I don't even think about how has my state of mind changed since the beginning of the sit. So and that's a really good way to acknowledge what's here and also reinforce and encourage myself to keep going on this path. Also, I had the experience of having equanimity, and while feeling wanting to change something out of a sense of care and compassion. My left knee has gotten kind of sore by the end of the sit, and I'm noticing the quality with which I'm I'm massaging it while I'm sitting. There's just a sense of my left hand just kind of wants to massage it right now. Okay, I'll let that happen, but I'm doing it with patience and with care, not with the sense of I just want this to go away. Just why isn't this all better now? And just noticing that feels powerful for me, even though it's a small moment, because as someone who cares about making positive changes in the world and yet don't want to do it out of a place of resistance, I appreciate kind of experiencing that during this sit just now. So thank you.
I'm glad you had that experience and take care of yourself. I'm particularly excited that you resonated with the noticing the qualities of mind, because that is both a way to sort of take stock, as you said, of how the techniques change our consciousness. But also, interestingly, if you can do this, if you can kind of zoom out and notice the quality of your attention without doing a particular technique, that's, it's useful in formal practice because then we can make adjustments, but also it's useful in daily life because we can just bring the quality of, say, concentration, or bring the quality of equanimity, or bring the quality of happiness to our daily life without necessarily needing to do a particular technique. We can just notice there's distraction. Okay, let me be present. We can just notice there's tightness. Let me relax, without needing to maintain a specific technique all of the time. And that's a very powerful skill set to cultivate. So it's good that you connected to that. Any other reports or questions or comments?
Yeah, hey. So I really resonated with what you said about grounding the concentration in bodily movements. Because I feel like in normal practice, it's like really easy for me to just through sheer determination reach like states of concentration, but then it's like a bit difficult to like integrate that into my daily life and like daily tasks, things like this. So I think this is like especially useful, like relating this to daily life.
Oh, I'm very glad to hear that. It's been a very powerful practice for me that taken up in the last few months. And, you know, here at Oak, we've been practicing it at the meals the last few days. You know, for example, if we take a spoon from the bowl to our mouths, you can do that with the inhale or with the exhale. And if you practice in these simple settings, whether it's on the cushion or while you eat a meal, over time, you'll start to notice that that can really inform how you move your body and show up in the world in just normal situations. And in fact, it can transform your behavior, how you move your body, how you speak, in ways that are hard to predict or anticipate, but tend to make you more successful at the thing you're trying to do. And it's also just more fun.
Right.
The world starts to become a giant dance floor that's moving with your breath. You know, you can inhale and make a motion, you can exhale and make a motion, and it starts to become like you're dancing with the world. So I hope you continue with the momentum from this and take it up into the world.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. I really like that analogy of the dance. And the exercise of raising the hand and down during sitting meditation was something I hadn't experienced before. And then I started being able to flow, through the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I played around with that for a little bit, and I was been kind of experimenting lately with samadhi and cultivating piti. And am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, and so it was interesting feeling the sensations of following the breath with my hand and that flow and the motion. And I just really liked your analogy of the dance. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you connected with it, Dave, and it's lovely to see you. And I imagine some people here have some kind of contemplative movement practice like yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong. And so it's the same kind of thing. And it's useful to connect this to that, and also to any kind of movement practice that you may have. I'm doing a lot of push-ups right now, for example. And so I synchronize one direction with the inhale and one direction with the exhale. And it goes better, it's more fun, and I get to practice mindfulness while I move my body, while I exercise. And the more I'm able to do that in different aspects of my life, the more I'm able to continue the momentum from formal seated practice into different aspects of my life in a way that really hasn't been possible for me with almost any other technique. I mean, Shinzen, for example, who many of us here know and are inspired by, has a bajillion techniques for how to practice in life. And I'm sure that this is one of them, but this has really been the one, following my breath and moving with the breath, that has allowed me to have the most momentum in my day. And I should mention as well, I sort of hinted to this, but it's worth sort of drawing out, that there's actually two ways to do it that are both valid, and you probably want to learn to do both. So one is to synchronize the breath with the motion. and one is to synchronize the motion with the breath. There's actually two directions. So you can notice how fast you're inhaling and move with that, or you can change the breathing to go faster or slower in accordance with the motion that you're making. And that's really useful to know for sort of arbitrary motions that you make throughout the day. You know, if you're turning your steering wheel, that's kind of a fast motion. So you might want to change your breath to go with that. You know, but for example, if you notice that you're kind of anxious, you might want to slow the breathing down and calm down and use your breathing to, use your motion of your body to accentuate that and allow your body to become even more calm. So experimenting with both directions, changing the breath to match the motion and changing the motion to match the breath gives you kind of a palette of options to work with that make it easier to continue this into the day. Mm-hmm.
Why is it that moving with the breath has this effect?
Well, in general, it seems like techniques that use the body, that come from the body, that are maintained in the body, tend to go better in many dimensions than techniques that we do with our heads, with our cognition, with our thinking. There is a valid place for that kind of technique. We did some of that today. There's a lot of things that you can just cultivate with your mind, but there's a lot of benefits to using the body in the practice. So one is, for example, that you know, it kind of tends to become automatic, where the body is just perpetuating the technique without you needing to intend to do that. So, you know, for example, the classic way that you might know that this is happening, oh yes, this is automatic now, is like, say you're on retreat, you're doing a technique all day, you're following the breath, maybe you're moving with the breath, and then you wake up, and without having much of a cognitive process going on, because you just woke up, you're already following the breath as soon as you wake up. This is an experience that many of us who sit retreats will have, where you're in this kind of brain fog, but your body's doing the practice. You don't need to understand it. You don't need to intend to do it. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to plan it out. You just have momentum from the technique. So that's in general the case with techniques that use the body, but this really augments that, because you're sort of intentionally trying to use the body, and you know, at the very least, you're sort of visually representing it to yourself. You're allowing it to become visual in a way that, like, your body, seeing your body can remind you that you're doing it. I mentioned to the group here the other day that if you go to a yoga class, for example, everyone follows the instructions of the yoga instructor. You know, they say, get into this pose, and everyone gets into that pose. But with meditation, it's not necessarily the case that you have to follow the instructions of the teacher, because you're just sitting there doing things with your awareness and your mind. And some people probably are falling asleep or doing something totally different, which of course in Shinzen system is a totally good approach. But you know, it makes it really concrete. I'm actually doing this right now. Is this actually, like, for myself, I noticed a few times, especially while I was talking, giving instructions, that there was sort of a lag between my hand and the breathing. I was like, oh, wow, it's hard to talk and move my body and breathe at the same time. And I was like, let me keep these instructions short so I can get back to this. You know, maybe some of you had a similar experience. I don't know. It can be a little hard, but you get that feedback sooner that, like, oh, wow, I'm raising my hand, but I'm actually exhaling, or I'm lowering my hand, but I'm actually inhaling. You know, I think it's going at this pace, but actually it's going at this pace. These are things that you tend to notice when you do a technique associated with breathing, but this just makes you get that feedback very quickly, and then that builds your concentration. Yeah.
Is there, let's see, does breathing faster like inherently makes you more anxious or no?
It does tend to make you more anxious. A lot of, for example, if you see people that are having anxiety attacks, often like two major things are happening. They're breathing into their chests instead of their abdomens, and they're also breathing very fast. You know, and if you keep doing that for an extended time, especially the breathing into the chest at that pace instead of the abdomen, you can kind of induce an anxiety attack for yourself. So I don't recommend that you do that, but it is something you can sort of reproduce. There are some benefits to breathing quickly, especially if you take care to do it into the abdomen. That can actually, for those of you that said you wanted to cultivate wakefulness, breathing quickly can take you out of a drowsy state of mind and into a wakeful state of mind. But just be sure to do that with the abdomen and not the chest. Many of us are habituated to breathing into our chests, and just part of any breathing practice is reversing that trend and starting to breathe into the abdomen instead of the chest, which is a healthier form of breathing. Of course, when you do that, I've sort of oversimplified it, because truly full and natural breath does breathe into the chest, but after you've already filled the abdomen. So you fill the abdomen, and then you fill higher and higher parts in your chest and shoulders, and then as you exhale from these parts and then back into the abdomen. But it's just simpler to say breathe into the abdomen, because that fixes like 80% of the problems. So just start there, and then you can work on the more like subtle parts. But so I'm saying there is a use to breathing quickly, but there's a danger, which is that it can cause like anxiety attacks. It can also cause, for those of you that have practices with energy, it can cause energy to rise into your head, which is generally you want energy to go down and not up. Or if you do bring it up, to make sure to bring it down after that the trend is balanced or downward rather than upwards. And breathing quickly, especially into the chest, can make it go. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're really connected to this practice of breathing with the motion and moving with the breath, this particular form of mindfulness of breathing, I would recommend that you try it out with something a little bit more complicated than moving your hand. You can keep the same practice going on the cushion, but then try it with something in your life. You know, maybe you have to mow your lawn. Can you like push the lawnmower with your exhale? Or you know, maybe you're taking the garbage out and you lift the garbage bag on the inhale and put it down on the exhale. Or you open the fridge on an inhale and close it on an exhale. You look for opportunities to synchronize the ordinary motions of our everyday life with the breath. You know, as we go about our lives, many of us have the experience that some things are just kind of boring. We don't really want to wash the dishes, or we don't really want to take out the garbage or mow the lawn or whatever it is. But this can make this kind of exciting and fun, especially if you get momentum with it. You know, you sit down in the morning to practice, and you practice following the breath, and then you bring it into your day by finding opportunities to synchronize the breath with the motion. Maybe you even have a yoga or Tai Chi practice where you can do it intentionally, and then, you know, you're at the office and there's a phone call, and you pick up the phone with an inhale and set it down with an exhale or something like that. There's all these kinds of opportunities to do this all day long, and the more momentum you have with it, it can sort of transform these seemingly banal activities into something that's fun and rewarding. And even, this has been my experience, it can, like, if you do it while you're speaking, for example, really interesting things can happen where you can find yourself saying words you didn't expect to say that were better than what you planned on, or other kind of spontaneous things. Like in the monastic training environment, we pay a lot of attention to how we do seemingly insignificant things like bow or light a candle or something like that. And it's often the case that, if we ring a bell with the exhale, the motion is more graceful and beautiful and fluid than it would otherwise have been. And that in itself can create kind of a positive feedback loop where you notice, this is really cool. Wow, I just moved in a way that I've never moved before. It's more graceful, it's more effective. And suddenly this thing that seemed banal or unimportant or uninteresting is fun and rewarding. And as much as possible with practice, we really want to set up these feedback loops where it's fun and rewarding, where it feels good, where it's exciting, where it's interesting, because that can carry itself forward, where instead of dreading meditation, we're excited to meditate. We just can't wait to get on the cushion to follow our breath. That's the point that you want to get to. And this kind of practice that makes it fun, that allows it to continue into daily life, is the kind of thing that sets up that feedback loop. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Amy?
You got to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I hope this is not an inappropriate thing to pipe up, but since we're talking a lot about the breathing, I just wanted to add that during the out breaths or exhalation, you actually do stimulate the parasympathetic system of your autonomic system. So the sympathetic system is kind of your fight or flight, and your parasympathetic system is kind of your relaxation. In fact, it drops your heart rate to a fairly noticeable extent for most people during exhalation, during out breath. So you can actually check your pulse and see how fast it's going during the inhalation. And then during exhalation, it should, in most healthy adults, you should notice a noticeable slowing of your pulse. So that's kind of goes along with what you're saying, that if you're synchronizing, striking, sounding the bell during your exhalation, you might, I would imagine there's somewhat of a synergy. You're striking this bell, this beautiful, and at the same time, you are kind of stimulating your own parasympathetic system to facilitate this relaxation state.
Thank you. I'm glad you could say that, because I've read about this before, but you can just say it very fluidly and clearly, and yeah, that is what happens. Maybe some of you know that many of us have practiced using the exhale in particular. There are techniques that involve extending the exhale, making it longer and longer, and this is why. It sort of rewires your body and your mind to be more calm and also more energetic. And it's useful to kind of slow down the breathing, and in particular the exhale, for exactly this reason. Good. Well, if there are no other questions or reports, for those of you that still have about 5 minutes, perhaps we could just take this time to take up one of the techniques that you really resonated with during this time, and we'll continue it together for about 5 minutes, just sitting together and enjoying the practice and each other's company. Very good. Thank you all for joining us here at Oak. Hope you had a good time and found something fruitful for your practice. For those of you that didn't find what you were looking for, perhaps you want to go and look on the sutras for something relevant. I recommend that. And it's a joy to be with you all. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So nice to meet you. Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tasshin. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Marty.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Robin.